Hello and welcome to Daily Records. I am Tommy Burton, and today we're going to be talking about the classic live album by The Who, The Who's Live at Leeds, released on May 16th, 1970. This was The Who's first official live album, recorded at the University Refectory. And of course, there's the inserts. I'm not going to pull them all out and all that good stuff. The University Refectory at the University of Leeds on Valentine's Day, 1970. Now, this, funny enough, it was the only live album that was released while the group was still the classic lineup of Roger Daltrey, Pete Townsend, John Entwistle, and Keith Moon. And it's come out a few times and been re-released, and let's go ahead and get it out of the way, this is widely regarded as one of the great live rock albums of all time. So this album served quite a few purposes. In the late 60s, and when The Who released Tommy in 1969, that was a landmark album, and Tommy really put The Who over the top commercially. They were a bona fide major band by that point. But they had built this reputation as being one of the great live acts. Now, there was a recording, I think it finally came out, the Fillmore recordings from 1968 that was slated for a live release. They scrapped that plan, went back, and did Tommy. Well, they did some grueling live concerts for Tommy. They played the entire Tommy album in the sets, in addition to sort of their hits, songs like Substitute, Happy Jack, My Generation. So they were doing some of those early singles as well as doing Tommy in its entirety. And so what happened was Tommy was sort of overshadowing the band at that point. More people were familiar with Tommy as a thing than The Who as a band. And so Pete Townsend had grand ideas to do the Lifehouse Project. All of that stuff's been documented. Go check it out on the internet. Really interesting stuff. But they were getting ready to do Who's Next. But this album sort of served as a stopgap, as a release between Tommy and Who's Next, to kind of keep them in the open. Now, funny enough, this album didn't feature any of the Tommy stuff. It featured more of the sort of long-winded jams, so it cut out the sort of Tommy set in the middle. Now, Tommy sort of was being a rock opera and all these sort of things that were taken very seriously. And so Tommy sort of became like I said, it was overshadowing the group, so they wanted to go in and do a live album. And so there was all these recordings that were made of the tour, and Pete Townsend just did not want to listen to hours and hours of live tape. So what they decided to do was to pick a show and record it, and that's what we're going to do. So they had a gig scheduled at University of Leeds, also another gig later on at Hull, and they were just going to record and release whatever got recorded there. So they recorded the shows on February 14th, February 15th, but there were some technical problems with the whole gig. The bass guitar had not been recorded, so really they looked at the Leeds gig on the 14th as the one that could be released. Now, Townsend, he mixed all the live tapes. It was going to be a double album, but then they just decided to do 6 tracks on one LP. Opening with Entwistle's Heaven and Hell, which was the set opener. And they left the Tommy stuff off, but there were actually some covers that they were known for doing. Young Man Blues was a big one with all the instrumental jamming. Summertime Blues, which was a big sort of live staple for the band at the time. And Shakin' All Over, which done pretty much kind of close to the original, but they slowed down the chorus a little bit and, again, jammed a little bit. Substitute, pretty similar to the live version. And then side 2 comes along, 15 minutes of My Generation. Pete Townsend just leading the band into all kinds of uncharted territory, playing with the echo in the back of the hall. It's exhilarating stuff. It's not like listening to technical live guitar playing that you might expect from people like Jeff Beck or Eric Clapton. But it's so cool to hear Pete just whip the band into a frenzy, slow things back down, whip them back up. And then, of course, Magic Bus, which was a big live hit at the time for the band, or live staple, that closes the album out. Again, kind of ambles on for quite a while. But it is exhilarating stuff listening to this band at their peak live. Entwistle played lead bass, going off into the stratosphere. Keith Moon on top of his games, wildly thrashing at the drums. Pete Townsend power chording a Gibson SG to death. And, of course, Roger Daltrey really became a front man thanks to the confidence he gained from doing Tommy. It was just, this is a band that was at the top of their game live, and it shows on even this 6-song sort of truncated version of the show live at Leeds. Exhilarating live rock and roll. That's the best way to describe it. That's why it's today's Daily Record. Like, comment, subscribe, share, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. You know the drill. In the meantime, I'll see you all again tomorrow with another Daily Record.